So this is 1999 Toyota Celica, fixing the rear windows on it. I'm just going to show you the passenger side, but it's the same for the driver's side. I'm going to start out by removing the interior trim panels in the rear seat. Just going to feel around, you'll find the different fasteners. It's the driver's side window there, I already got that out. The car might have more fasteners than mine. Some mine are missing already. They're all pretty obvious except for the two that we're going to get to here in a second. You can see there that I removed the trim piece from the door sill. You need to do that before you can get this big trim piece off. And I must have already had those other fasteners out. There's two push type fasteners behind where the back of the rear seat is. Pull the seatbelt out and just set this thing to the side. I'm going to disconnect the seatbelt later because it just makes it easier. Get the panel farther out of the way. Next up, you gotta take this filler thing out. There's three bolts on it. There's this one underneath and those two off to the side. And after that, the speaker comes out. There's just four of these bolts holding it on. You can unplug the speaker too. And then there's four spots that hold the tracks that the window rides on. Sorry, three spots that the tracks are held in by, and four spots that the motor that runs the thing is held by. Already got the screws off, the nuts off here. But I think coming up, I'll show you the other way around. Disconnect this wiring harness and pull it through. That's for the window motor. It's a little out of order here, but those are the four screws that hold the window motor in, and down there's the first, second, and then third that hold the window tracks on. All of those gotta come off. If you're really good, you can remember how they're set to begin with, but I just took them off and then adjusted the window later. I also want to remove this piece of weather stripping from the top. It makes it easier to get the window in and out. Next, I pushed the bolts holding the motor through so that the window fell out the bottom of the tracks. Now I'm gonna extract the tracks from inside the body. Just push it through and sort of wiggle it around and lift it up, and it should come sliding right out. It's a little tricky, but keep finagling around in there and you'll get it. Almost. Don't forget that bottom one, poking through. Almost. And there you go. After that's out, just reach in and pull out the window and the motor assembly. It all comes out together. Similar story, just kind of wiggle it around, find the right spot. Here it comes. Putting a little bit of penetrating oil on these might not be necessary, but I suppose it helps. And then I've got this tool here that I made to get these off. I just drilled holes, I think they were 16 millimeters apart, just measure, and put 2 nails in and ground them flat. And this lets me get the leverage to get these off. I tried using a pair of needle nose to get them off, but I just wasn't able to twist hard enough, so I made this little tool. You can see it breaks them loose right away. Once you get her going, then you can switch over and use a needle nose to get them off the rest of the way. I'm persisting in using this tool because I like it. I didn't remember where the needle nose were, but there you go. Now I found them. That's better. Look at how quick that thing comes off. Oh, there you go. Come on, you got it. Nice. Oh, now we're getting some rhythm. Maybe I spoke too soon. Next, I'm going to disconnect the motor assembly from the carrier plate. Just hold the one side with the wrench and back it out like that. Comes right off. Now, I have I wasn't able to find the plates for both sides. What I really need is the new rollers, because the rollers crack off and break. But what I did was order 2 plates for the passenger side, which I could get, and then transfer the rollers onto the old driver's side plate, because the rollers are identical on both sides. Unfortunately, you can't buy the rollers by themselves, so it's $60 per plate. And just put this back on to the new plate in the same order you took it off with. It's washers are all on there, and there's a little spring. And right now I'm just transferring the motor to the new hardware that came with the new plate. I figured I had the new hardware, may as well use it. But you probably could just use the old hardware. So I'm taking this apart. And just remember the order that the washers and the spring are on there, so that when you transfer it to the new one, it works good. I'm putting a little bit of grease on there because seems like the right thing to do. There's a shoulder on the bolt that meets the nut. It's the spring to the right tension, so just crank the nut down and the spring will be tensioned properly. Use one wrench on the bolt and one wrench on the nut together to tighten it down. Not that wrench, silly. Yeah, that's the right one. There you go. So now that I got the carrier plate hooked up with the new rollers, I'm going to put the window back on the carrier plate. There's these little plates on there. There's a concave side and a flat side. The flat side on the carrier plate. And then there's these little bushings, little plastic bushings here that go on there. That go in between the metal piece and the glass. This one's intact. The next one that I'm going to put on is kind of busted. So I'll fast forward through that while I get that fixed. If you're patient, you can get the pieces of the busted one to line up like a puzzle. And then once it's squeezed down, it doesn't know the difference. At least that's what I think. Now I'm going to grease up the rails. Again, I don't know if you really have to, but it seems like the right thing to do. Nice job using that stick to not get any grease on your fingers. Yep. Oh. Wow. So now I'm going to put the window back in the tracks. Looks like I'm starting at the bottom. Yeah, that makes sense. Can't get it in through the top. I'm gonna get it lined up just right. If you have to force it at all, it's probably not right. See how it just popped into place once I get it all lined up. No, it goes up and down. Not exactly smoothly, but pretty nicely. Now here comes the most exciting part of this whole job. You gotta get the window, track, and motor all down through that little slot together at the same time. Takes a lot of wiggling around to find the right position. You start it one way and then you change it a little. There it goes. At some point, you need to have the window rolled almost all the way down to the bottom of the tracks in order to get everything to clear the narrowest gap between the body and the frame of the car there. But you have to start out with it up to get the bottom bolt of the tracks to clear. So right now it's catching at the front. Just trying to figure that out. It's pretty sturdy, but don't force anything, you know? Just kind of wiggle it around. Definitely recommend having another set of hands to help with this. And be careful while you're doing it, that the window can fall out the bottom of the tracks. So once you start getting closer to the bottom, make sure somebody's got a hold of the top of that thing at all times. This is a game of millimeters, but gravity is on your side. Once you get the window down to about this far, you can start trying to line the bolts on the motor mount up with the holes in the frame. Once you get those through, you can thread the nuts on, and that holds the window on the tracks. So once you get the nuts on to the motor bolts, then pretty much on the home stretch. So like I said, this is the worst part of the job, but as you can see, I left it uncut, and it only took us about 15 minutes to do, so. Got these in the window still didn't roll up, so I took the switches out from the center console and took them apart and cleaned off the contacts. You can see they're nice and clean there, but they were covered in some sort of black corrosion. Once I put the switches back together, then it worked. They worked just fine. You use the three mounting bolts on the rails to adjust the position of the window by moving them in and out and left to right.